Hey guys, welcome back to the Scotch Podcast. Today we have episode 36 and we are introducing one of our old collegians, Tom Russell here.
Hi.
Big welcome. So while at Scotch, he starred in multiple professional feature films, including The Last Ride with Hugo Weaving and Matching Jack. Tom was also involved in the annual Scotch musical, where he played roles such as the Pirate King in Pirates of Penzance.
Yeah.
Close, not quite. Jets member Baby John in West Side Story and Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar. Additionally, he was one of the original 4 members of the 64, a musical 60s tribute show that I was actually stalking on Instagram the other day.
They're playing at the Royal Show.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
You guys are, yeah. Anyway, after graduating at Scotch, he went on to study a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Acting at the National Institute of Dramatic Arts, also known as NIDA. After graduating from NIDA, he went on to join the Australia production of The Cursed Child for the last 2.5 years before it closed in 2023. While in The Cursed Child, he played young and older James Potter, as well as Cedric Diggory. Since The Cursed Child, he has also starred in a couple of short films, coached drama classes, and enjoyed travelling. So, as mentioned before, your most recent fame is probably being in The Cursed Child, where you played a few different characters in 500 plus shows over 2.5 years, including both the really, really long and the less long versions of the show. So what was your most memorable moment from the production?
Good. Thank you for having me. Good question. It might be a bit boring when I say most memorable, but as a performer, I think most people would agree that it's the memories you make off stage and backstage is a lot more memorable than when you're on stage, which I'm sorry, audience, if you're listening in. But we have so much fun doing that show. And especially, as you were saying, I was there for 2.5 years and some people were there for the 4 years, 5 years. And so it does just become a job by the end of it. And so you need to find ways to entertain yourself. So we just had so much fun off stage. I think one of the biggest things we would always do is try to make each other laugh when they were on stage. I probably can't talk about it too much because I'm going to get some people fired. But we would sit side stage a lot of the time in a lot of different costumes and get-ups and just try to break each other on stage. And it happened so frequently. We moved props and different set pieces to recreate 2 people sitting on the toilet whilst a very serious scene was happening on stage to make them laugh. And it was a lot. One. Yeah. I think so that's kind of half of it. The other half is probably one of my favorite moments was when I got to go on as Albus, he's like the lead, I guess. He was it was my understudy role, and with this role, basically he plays Harry's son as Albus in the show. If it kind of follows, he gets sorted into Slytherin at the beginning of the show, and it's about how he deals with that and going on. And I had been in the show for quite a while beforehand, and I was getting ready to go on, and then we went into a snap lockdown because it's Victoria and we love it over there. So we went into a lockdown for like 5.5 months. We came out, and then we had changed the show completely. So the show went from being 2 parts. It was 2.5 hour shows, and we condensed it all and we turned it into a 3.5 hour show. So we were doing more hours per week at the same kind of show, if that makes sense. And so it was just this whole slog. I was really excited to do it, and then it didn't happen, and then lockdown, and then a new show came about, and then I want to say maybe 3 weeks into this new version of the show, our lead, who was Albus, he twisted his ankle on a Sunday night, and we hadn't teched in the understudies yet, and so it means that we hadn't gone through the show for the understudies with all of their technical aspects like costuming, props, magic tricks, and the lighting and all that kind of stuff. And so luckily, it was a Sunday night, and it was towards the end of the show, and so he managed to kind of get by. And I remember getting a message the next day from him being like, just get ready. And I hadn't teched the show. I'd rehearsed the whole thing, but I'd only kind of done the show teched with all of the show aspects to around a quarter of the way in. And so getting that message, I wasn't super nervous because I'd been preparing for such a long time. I was kind of like, you know what, let's just go for it. And it happened. So on a Tuesday night, I kind of got the message. I came in. I just ran through all of the big parts of the show that involved flying in the air or fire. Those are the two big ones. And yeah, I just kind of, I winged it as best you could. And we got through the show. It was 3.5 hours long, and it was one of those kind of surreal moments where everything just kind of happens around you, and it was such a well-oiled beast that everything was kind of there, and you're just traveling through it. And we finished it, and I just remember during the bows, I was so overwhelmed with emotion because it had been at that stage almost a year-long journey to get to that point. And I was just like sobbing on stage, and like audiences were loving it because it was also early days of a new show. And so we were getting standing ovations and all that kind of stuff. But it was a really great moment of just kind of, not just that past year, but I'd also had been through 3 years of drama school, and then we went into the lockdowns again. And it was this kind of, will we ever get back to this level of theatre and magic, I guess.
Yeah.
And so, there was this big kind of culmination of all of that, which led to, and then the guy who played Albus, he had done his ankle pretty badly, so I got to do roughly like almost 2 weeks of it as that role, which was fantastic for me, not great for him. And then he came back, and kind of then I had to readjust and go back to my original role. But definitely just having that opportunity, I think, was amazing in that role.
So speaking of magic and special effects and fire, you mentioned, what was probably the most impressive special effect or onstage stunt that you were involved with?
That I was involved in?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the show, I don't know if you've seen or if anyone's seen it, there are different, there's a sequence essentially where you are flying through the air, and then the next minute you appear from a lake that opens, like ground opens up and water appears, and then people come splashing out of it.
Okay.
And my favorite thing was always these kids that would come up to, not even kids, adults, everyone after the show, how'd you do it? I'm like, I would ask, like, how do you think we did it? And people would say, well, okay. And they would sort out their plan. There's a giant slide that you take from the top of the stage that lingers down, and then you swim underground tunnels. And I was like, yeah, no, that's exactly right.
Basically.
Yeah. Because we can't spoil too much, but I can spoil it now. Basically, there's a sequence where you go down this trap door, like a lift, after a Moaning Myrtle scene. And so you're going into like the tunnels, and then you have to run around the theatre, run up some stairs. Meanwhile, you're wearing a harness. You've already done the previous scene harness, and you've underdressed. So you're wearing a harness, you're running in a harness. You get to side stage, they clip you up, you go up, I want to say 13 meters, 15 meters in the air. And the harness is just attached to your hips. And then how this kind of thing works is a curtain would almost drop down with a little lens. We call it a lens in the middle. And it looks like underwater, essentially.
Yeah.
And you would then, once you're 15 meters in the air, you have to then lean forwards, and so that your head is facing the floor and that your feet are in the air, and you have to motion that you are swimming. So you're kind of swimming downwards. You appear into this lens. I'm going to just, spoil the whole thing.
Okay.
But basically it looks like you're underwater and you're swimming.
Yeah.
You do a backflip and all this random stuff, and the next minute you're down and this lake would appear, which you would come from at the end. Mm-hmm. And the great trick about this lake was people would just appear from it and you wouldn't see where they've come from initially. And so how it would work is there was a scuba system within this little tank that was under the stage where you would get in, you would have to put on goggles and breathe through a little scuba kit, and then you hide in a little tunnel that is already in this cave.
Oh, goodness.
And that is under the stage, and then that gets lifted up to meet stage level. So it kind of... So then the audience can see it. So you have to hide in the tunnel so no one can see you. And I'm realizing I'm saying this on a podcast, and it's a very visual thing I'm describing.
I'm trying really hard to visualize this.
It's just go with me on this.
Okay,
watch
I
the
am.
TikTok. Mm-hmm. And So you would appear, and then you would know it's time to emerge, because a light would go off. You have to take off your goggles really carefully to not ruin the mic that's strapped on your head. You have to then take out the scuba system, put it in the middle of the tank enough that the crew can fish it out, swim to the middle of the tank, and then pop out of the water, and people don't know how you got in there in the first place, because to the audience, the stage has opened up and there's always been a pool that's not moved the whole time. So that would be my favourite.
Wow.
A lot has gone wrong, though.
Just what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
Well done. Did anything ever go wrong?
Oh, yeah. So with that trick, things would go wrong because at the same time that was happening, Dementors were flying in the air. I remember there being a show where they just kept getting stuck on things. The Dementors are people in full Dementor costumes, harnessed up and flying through the air. But there was a show where they kept getting stuck. And it's this awkward thing because if that goes wrong, someone's still underwater in the tank, and all they can do is see. They can't really hear what's going on, and so we would have like different hand signals and gestures. And there was so a show that when that went wrong, where they had to kind of rearrange this whole thing, but they were okay. There was anything that went wrong. But I think the best part about this show is there are so many tricks that things go wrong all the time.
Yeah, of course.
You know, there would be. Something went wrong almost every show, every week. But it was about how do you kind of navigate that, and how do you think on your toes and work around that. There was one where fire started randomly coming from the floor, just spurting out from the floor. No one got injured.
Okay.
And it was very safe, and we're okay. So I wanted to clarify that.
Good.
But yeah, there was a scene where we're kind of sitting on a train.
Yeah.
And a button was pressed that wasn't supposed to be pressed.
And then fire.
Fire just started coming out of the floor at one part. We were all okay. We kind of had to slowly evacuate the stage.
Yep.
Basically, it's a trick for later on in the show, and they pressed the button way too soon. And that's fine. Because I think the best thing is with this show, there were so many elements of the show that could go wrong, and they did go wrong.
Yeah.
And no one ever kind of held it against anyone. It was always... Yeah, things go wrong, but that's theatre, and it's all about thinking on your toes and how can we work together to kind of recreate this. There was multiple days where the show was done in a revolve, so the whole stage will spin, but you need the revolve in the show. It's so important. And there was a whole month where it just stopped working, and the choreographer would come down and we'd rework an entire movement piece to kind of shape the show without
in a new
way without the revolve on. And it was, if anything, we as the cast, I think the crew hated it, but we loved it when things went wrong because we were doing the same show every single day, and
added a bit of spice.
Added a bit of zest to it. You're like, oh, okay, we're down this person. How can we kind of think on our toes?
Yeah.
And when the show became a one-parter, I think in the last year I became movement captain, so it meant I got to see so much more of the show, and I got to work with the cast in creating these corrections, these fixes to solutions to any of the problems that went wrong. So I think a lot went wrong.
Okay.
But it was great at the same time. We kind of loved it.
I've got a little tangent question. Yeah. You said when they're in like the tank down the bottom with the snorkel, and then they swim to the other. Can they breathe? Do they have a snorkel on?
So they've got like a scuba kit.
Okay.
You need to. It was when you had to emerge. Like a light would go off.
Yep.
You had someone else in the tank with you. You had to kind of let them know to come up.
Okay.
And then you would have to take off your scuba kit, so you hold your breath.
Okay.
It was only like 5 seconds.
Okay, so no one was going to... You couldn't drown.
And if you were just stuck, you just stand up.
Okay, cool.
You're seen and everything.
Okay,
Very
great.
safe.
I'm glad.
Yeah, no one was harmed during Harry Potter and the Cursed Child.
Good.
No.
Okay, so what do you enjoy the most about performing live theatre?
Yeah, I definitely, between film and theatre, I will pick theatre every day of the week.
Yeah.
And I think it at the end of the day, it comes down to the audience. The best way I can always put it when people ask is having a live audience there, you get an instant reaction from whatever you do or try. In a film, you can try something and you think it's really funny. But at the end of the day, it's not up to you what performance is used. A director or the editor will just pick a certain take on a certain day, and they'll change it how they see fit and make it work and all of that. But it's not you at the end of the day. Like, you don't have the final say in what you have just performed. And you work with the director as much as you can to kind of be on the same page. But yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's what they pick. But with theatre, at the end of the day, it comes down to you. It's what you bring to it. And if you try something and the audience laugh, great, got it.
Yeah.
You can try the same thing the next day and they hate it. And it's a game. It's at the beginning of each show, you kind of work out what your audience is and who they are to you and what they like and what they don't like. And it's a bit of a game where you test the waters a bit and you don't go in swinging too hard and you don't try certain things that you wouldn't try other shows. And some shows you find that they love everything that I'm doing. So I'm just going to keep at it and keep goofing around with them. Because it's also every show you do, there are different nuances, and you can find that you're not always going to do the same show exactly the same twice.
No.
But what I really enjoy about live theatre is that audience aspect, and that you're meeting a new group every day, and that reaction you get from them is instant.
Yep.
Probably that.
Do you think that the Sorting Hat gets it right every time?
Oof. Sorting Hat, mate. The thing with the Sorting Hat is you can ask what house to be in, which I'm like, well...
Defeats the whole
purpose, because you could be the most Hufflepuff person and be like, nah, put me in Slytherin. And you will sink. You won't swim.
No, you won't swim.
So I think it gets it right in that its intuition is correct, but it doesn't get it right in letting students have the say.
What are you in?
I've done the test a few times.
Okay, same.
And I get a different response each time. But I think, and I'm wearing the colour now, I think I'm a Gryffindor. It's the answer I get most. And I think I kind of see it as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think I got a Hufflepuff once and I felt disgusted.
I think I actually also had that same experience.
You're a Slytherin, aren't you?
I am a Slytherin. I am,
hell.
but I'm not sure if I am, but apparently I am.
Yeah, Slytherin would say that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Probably next question.
Moving on from that touchy subject. When you were around 10 or 11, you were cast in a movie starring alongside the famous Australian movie actor Hugo Weaving. So when you were about to start filming this movie, Hugo had already been in all 3 original Matrix movies, all 3 Lord of the Rings movies, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, and also Happy Feet. Then it turns out that your role in the movie is to play Hugo's son, as you travel across Australia trying not to be caught by police as he learns how to be a better father to you. How did you feel going into this project, knowing how high profile it was going to be and also how intense the storyline was?
Yeah. We talked about it a bit before, and that you didn't know who Hugo Weaving was, and
No,
that's
I
fine. No, because
I do now.
well, that's the thing. When I was starting off this gig, it was my first feature film, first movie I'd made. I'd done a short film before, and so I kind of had an idea of a little bit what I was getting into, just not the size of it. I had no idea who Hugo Weaving was.
Okay, that makes me feel so much better.
And no, that's fine, because I'd never seen any of his movies before.
Yeah.
And I probably shouldn't have been. I was 10 years old. But I think that helped. I think it really helped me back then, because I had no expectations of this guy. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't nervous. He was just this guy that, was playing my dad for 6 weeks as we made this movie.
Yeah.
In terms of the magnitude of it, it's hard to it was hard to grasp, because this movie was very different to anything else I've ever made, in that instead of a base location where you set up and you go home at the end of each day and that's kind of it, you can clock in, clock out. And this was, we would do 5 days a week around the Flinders Ranges, and our crew would pack up everything and travel around with us. We didn't have a base, because everywhere that we filmed was different every week.
Yep.
And so it just meant on the weekends you were often driving a few hours to the next place, where then we would stay in the local sometimes it'd be a hotel. Sometimes I remember we stayed in someone's house because there was no hotel in this area.
Yeah.
It was I think that place was called Lake Air. No, Lake Edna. Sorry, it was Lake Edna. It was the big salt lake, and yeah, it was amazing because this crew. I think it was around 60 people. I want to say, we all became so tight knit because we were just essentially this big family, and it was almost like a road trip to me in my brain because I'd hang out with all of these people every day, and we'd film, and we would laugh together, and we'd go to the pub at the end of the week, and we'd just all spend so much time together. And Hugo was great as well, and he was such a good part of that little family that we had, and he would sit down with everybody. There was no ego about him, and it was, I don't think he knew it, but he was such a great mentor to me in that time as well, because it was my first time, and
of course.
I didn't really have any expectations of what it was going to be, and it turned out to be just probably the most life-changing experience. It kind of set up the whole, it set up my life that, I want to do this forever. And it kind of, this is my calling. And yeah, so in terms of the magnitude, I loved spending time with all of those people, and Hugo and the director and the producer would come in and out. And I loved it so much. And I can't think of any film I've done that has ever matched the my enjoyment level that I had on that production. So yeah, it was a really great start for me. I wasn't nervous at all going
Perfect
into
way
it.
to go into it.
Yeah.
You followed this project with another starring role in the movie Matching Jack, where you play a boy with leukemia who is waiting to find a bone marrow donor so he can be cured. What was it like to play such an intense role while you were still a kid?
Yeah, it was. I went into that pretty quickly off of the back of Last Ride, and I knew it was going to be a different beast altogether because it was a different theme. It was still quite a heavy topic. Last Ride's quite a heavy film, and Matching Jack is equally as heavy in a different respect. And I knew it was going to be different because day one, I had shoulder length hair and they had to shave the whole thing off. And it was filmed in Melbourne, and I was already pasty, but then being like a very pasty, bald kid in Melbourne, I was getting treated very differently as well. I was getting treated because I looked like I had leukemia. And so that matched with where we were filming, because we were in this abandoned hospital at the time. It was almost as if all of the circumstances were made for me.
Yeah.
We did our research going into it, and we had done our research into leukemia and what it can do to people, but that was only one aspect. I think the rest of it was being in a location and having the external circumstances of being treated as if I already had cancer. It almost kind of set the scene for me that all I had to do was say my lines. I had great mentors in that as well, and my sister was such a great help to me. She was my chaperone, and the director was amazing. And it was such heavy content. It was such a heavy thing to film at such a young age.
Yeah.
But yeah, we got through it. There was a lot of, I think, looking back at that and Last Ride, it was a lot of teamwork that got through. My family was very helpful to kind of set the scene and make sure that I was doing a good job on set, but also making sure that I was okay outside of that, and I was not taking any kind of negativity with me because it's such traumatic circumstances.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, we tried to create a really good environment for that. But yeah, it was definitely a different ball game, but still a really great learning curve for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking back, what were the biggest highlights and also the biggest challenges of such a high-profile start to your acting career, considering you went in with these two projects that were huge and you were only just starting middle school?
Yeah, it's funny, because I remember I came to Scotch in 2010. I had just come off of a film called The Tree, and I was so excited to start Scotch. I was really keen. I remember I got a week in to year 7 here at junior school, or middle school, sorry. And there then leave for 2 months, 3 months to go and film a miniseries called Cloud Street. And so it was in, and then I was out straight away. And then I came in 3 months later, and everyone had already made all of their friends, and I was just this kind of. I remember talking to this kid, and he was cool, and she was great, and that was hard as well because it's coming from new school, and then I was leaving, and then coming back when everyone had made their friends, and that was tricky.
Yeah.
It was a bit crazy early on because it was kind of back after back jobs, which is fantastic and it's amazing. But it did mean that I was missing out on some birthday parties and other things like that. And it definitely kind of gave me a false sense of security in that, this is what it's going to be forever.
Yeah.
Because then you fall into your teenage years and you go, I'm not as cute anymore. My voice has dropped. And the roles get less and less. And then, but with that meant I could actually focus on my personal life and school and friends and with everything like that. And so, there was a period in there where it was like, 2 or 3 gigs in a year to then maybe 2, to then maybe 1. And it was still the odd one here and there. But I think the best thing when those lulls were happening, when there wasn't work, it was, I can put all of my attention on just being a teenager and going to school and not having the expectation of working, and that can just be on the side.
Yeah.
While I can focus on school and what's right in front of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After graduating at Scotch, you were accepted into the prestigious National Institute of the Dramatic Arts. What are some of your strongest memories of being at NIDA?
Yeah. I remember I always wanted to go because Hugo Weaving had went, and I remember talking to him. And he raved about it. I was like, okay, right. Well, I'm going to go then. Because if you went, well, that seems like a good idea. Yeah. And so, luckily I got in first time, which was insane. And that kind of set up my next big 3 years. And it was funny. I think the thing that I take away most is just when you're there, you are surrounded by the change makers and these amazing people in the arts industry and that will be there for the next 20, 30 years. Like the people that were in my year alone, you've got like Sophie Wilde, who she's going to be the next like big, she already is if you don't know her, but she was the lead in Talk to Me. And she's in all of these incredible movies now, and she's on like Vogue magazine and Vanity Fair, and she was in Boy Swallows Universe.
Okay.
And I'm like, yeah, she's great. And you've got other, like in my year I had like Nicholas Cartwright and Ethan Brown, who are now like the 2 leads on Home and Away. And then you look in the other departments and there are these amazing directors and amazing crew members and makeup and wardrobe. And I think when you're there, you're like, this is just uni to me. But then as soon as you graduate, you go, these people are now going to be the pioneers of the Australian arts industry for the next 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to kind of look back and go like, I went to uni with them and we shared our lunch and we got coffees and it's crazy. So, because I didn't think of that going into it, but then as soon as graduating, I was like, wow,
sinks in.
This was amazing to just have these connections.
Do you keep in contact with them now?
Yeah, I try to when I can. It's so funny because just work pulls us all in different directions, and some people have moved countries and states, and I was living with people I went to uni with, and then I moved to Melbourne for Harry Potter, and life gets in the way. But then I've gotten gigs since, and I've bumped into people again. I was like, you were in the year below me, or you were 2 years above, and it's like a little kind of connection point we can all have, being like, hey, you're at NIDA, I was there in 2017, I was 2018, and you can kind of have connection with these strangers through that kind of bonding experience.
Okay, last 2 questions.
Great. You're all good.
1, what advice would you have for anyone that's keen to get into an acting career?
I would say acting is such a funny thing because it can heavily rely on external choices, in that a director wants you or doesn't want you, or you're not looking the right part or the right way. So for going into it, I think the most important thing would be to never let those external factors hinder you if it's what you really want to do.
Yeah.
If you don't get a gig, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
There will be ones in the future. And if nothing's coming your way, then you need to be the person to make that opportunity yourself.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing that back in drama school and hating it because I'm so lazy and I just want to audition and not even that, I just want to get the gig and move on. And, you know, but it's true. It's you can't let those external factors stop you from getting work or creating work yourself. I just went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in Scotland, and it was just crazy, the magnitude of performers and creatives there. It's over 1,000 shows, I think, and it's just filled with people who are forging their own path instead of hoping to get cast in something one day. They are creating it themselves, because then from that you can get picked up from somewhere else. But I think it's such a tough career in that I talk about this a lot with my mum especially, but it's a really intricate career, an interesting career in that you will be asked to prepare things that you wouldn't usually for any other job interview. Like I've prepared a 7-page monologue for my first round audition for a movie that I didn't get, but I've spent 2 weeks preparing it instead of just like handing in a CV and that kind of thing. There is so much time that's just to be expected that you'll lose when you're in that career. And so it's tough. And I think you can't really be prepared for that level, but you just have to kind of put all your chips in and
give it your best.
Give it your best. It's all or nothing. Yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, if you looked back on your time at Scotch, what were your favourite Scotch moments?
Oh, I can't hear bagpipes without crying.
Oh, I feel like that's a universal thing.
Does that happen a lot on this podcast? I don't know what, even the pageant, the Christmas pageant here in Adelaide, I don't know what it is. I want them at my wedding. Like I love like those bagpipes and I can't put my finger on it. That's probably the main thing. Yeah. The things I look back at Scotch the most are probably the experiences that you get here. And it's in every aspect, in that I'm quite a performing arts focused kid, and so obviously the school musicals that we touched on, my Baby John appearance, but the level that goes of work and talent and trust as well within these productions, I think is outstanding. I think Scotch do it so well. Their shows, they speak wonders, because you learn more doing a production than you do just doing a class about doing a production. And I think that I learnt more in those classes than I have at NIDA sometimes. In those productions than I have at NIDA. And so I think when kids are given the stage, they take it. And that's where you grow as a performer, as a person. But outside of the performing arts, I really look back at my camps. I did outdoor education, and just to go on these amazing, I still love to go out into just the bush and get out and to have the opportunity to go to Mount Arapiles on rock climbing or surfing or anything like that. And I love my sport, and so then I would go and to do the state athletics carnival that we or the inter-school one that we had. And I think looking back, I've had experiences here that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. Yeah. And I can't say that many other people would have gotten. And also, I think lastly, just reminiscing coming back today, it is a beautiful campus. It is. You're so lucky. It's just...
No, definitely.
I think when you are surrounded by such natural beauty that is this campus, it just affects you psychologically and
makes coming to school much easier.
It does, because it really makes you want to arrive and to be here and to rock up and be happy with your surroundings. You're not crammed into tiny classrooms, and you've got these beautiful this wildlife and so I would narrow it down to just the experiences that I've had here. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that wraps us up before the bell goes, so that it ruins all of the audio. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Tune in. Maybe we'll start our own podcast. Oh,
we did it. We were so close. I'm counting that as a win.
Okay, just play the outro. We're done.